Costa Rica is a country filled with majestic rainforests, volcanoes and tropical beaches, but all of that beauty comes at a cost. Today I'm gonna tell you just how expensive it is to go on vacation in Costa Rica. I've been on a 2-week trip in Costa Rica, and in this video I'm gonna tell you about my travel budget for the whole trip. Buckle up, this is gonna be painful. Painful for my wallet, that is. I'm gonna list my expenses in a couple of different categories, and then I'm gonna do a total summary at the end. The categories are getting to Costa Rica, accommodation, activities, transportation inside Costa Rica, eating and drinking, and then a total summary. The major cost in getting to Costa Rica is the flight ticket. That's roughly $1,000. But there's more. In order to transfer in Miami, I needed both a COVID test and an ESTA. And then to transfer back, I needed another COVID test. So that's $65 plus $14 plus $55. Then I spent a little bit of money at the airports as well, of course. Eating, drinking, being miserable while I wait. When it comes to accommodation, I had a pretty wide range of hotels and hostels. In Arenal, I stayed at a place called Arenal Poshbacker, aimed at a backpacking crowd. In Monteverde, I stayed at Pension Santa Elena. Those were $97 and $84 respectively for 3 nights each. In Manuel Antonio, things got a bit weird. The hotel that I booked cancelled, so I had to find another one last minute. It ended up being the Falls Resort at $443 for 3 nights. Then I spent 3 nights in Drake Bay at the Pirate Cove for $300, and finally 2 nights at Hotel Presidente for $321. It was a little bit unnecessary with 2 nights in San Jose in retrospect, but I wanted some margin. You can see that the cost went up as time moved on. I like to rough it in the beginning and then reward myself towards the end. Overall, Pension Santa Elena is probably the best value for the money out of all the accommodations, but I really loved the Pirate Cove in Drake Bay as well. But onwards to the next category, all the activities I did in Costa Rica. Canyoning or rappelling with pure trek in Arenal will set you back $108, but it's very much worth it. Hiking the majestic Arenal volcano will set you back between $45 and $70 if you take a guided tour. Personally, I'd recommend to take a taxi or some other transportation to the park and just walk by yourself. It's not necessary to have a guide on those hikes. A day pass at the Tabacon Thermal Spa will set you back a whopping $82, but this is the oldest and most famous of the thermal spas in Arenal. Hiking the Monteverde Cloud Forest Reserve will cost you $25. It's pretty much a steal for all the majestic, wondrous beauty of nature. Plus a taxi to get here and back again if you don't have transportation, at maybe $14 for that. A trip to the Salvatura Park in Monteverde will cost you between, say, $50 to $200, depending on exactly what you want to do here. If you just want to do the magnificent canopy walk, then it's maybe $50-ish. But then you can add ziplining, where they also try to sell you pictures, and add a lunch maybe. And then you can also visit a butterfly garden, or a reptile exhibit, or a sloth sanctuary. It all adds up if you want to make it a full day here. Manuel Antonio is Costa Rica's smallest but most visited national park. A visit there will set you back $18. There's a lot of national park for those dollars. Visiting the La Fortuna waterfall in Arenal will cost you $18 and 16 more if you have to take a taxi there and back again like me. But it's quite worth it. The waterfall is magnificent. On a blazing day like this, it's awesome to dive into the pool by the waterfall and almost kill yourself on the slippery rocks. A visit to the bat jungle in Monteverde, where you can learn everything you never wanted to know about bats, will cost you $14. Corcovado is the biggest national park in Costa Rica, and it's also the only place where you can see the largest land-living mammal in Costa Rica, the tapir. Even though those lazy bastards are mostly sleeping in the bushes all the time. A tour of Corcovado National Park will cost you $109, and you need to have an official guide to visit the park as of 2014. A dive trip to Isla del Caño will cost you $145. That's for 2 dives and all equipment included. It is a little bit expensive, but I have dived in more expensive places, unfortunately. I visited quite a few places in Costa Rica, and how did I get around between those places? I used shared shuttles a lot. That's a good compromise between cost and convenience. They pick you up at your hotel, so that's quite convenient, but of course you have to share it with other people, but it's fewer than if you take a public bus. The shuttle between San Jose and Arenal cost $59. Between Monteverde and Manuel Antonio, it cost me $71. And between Manuel Antonio and Sierpe, it cost $47. I used a taxi service between Arenal and Monteverde, and that was great value for the money at $27. I also had to take a boat from Sierpe to Drake Bay, and that cost $15. Finally, I splurged a little bit in getting back to San Jose from Drake Bay. I took a flight, and that cost me $152. All in all, the transportation cost a fair bit, but much less than renting a car. I think a third or a fourth of the price of renting a car. A car is good for flexibility, but I still felt that I could go everywhere I wanted this way. Anyway, let's move on to eating and drinking. Eating and drinking in Costa Rica won't be the biggest part of your travel budget. Breakfast is typically between a couple of dollars to $15 at touristy places. Lunch and dinner often cost between $10 and $25 at touristy places, say $15 as an average. Beers are between $2 and $5. All in all, my living expenses ended up at $763 approximately. But keep in mind that I didn't buy any souvenirs. I think everything I bought was a pair of flip-flops, mosquito repellent, and a fridge magnet. Now let's get to the total summary of the whole trip. My whole trip ended up costing roughly $5,000. That's for one person, 2 weeks, with reasonable splurging. Something I decided early on was to not go cheap on the activities. When you're in a beautiful place like Costa Rica, you have to explore and experience as much as possible. You can do a trip like this much cheaper if you're not traveling around as much, but you can also make it a lot more expensive. A lot more. But I'm a 3-star Vagabond, not a 5-star Vagabond, so this level of comfort was fine for me. The accommodations ended up being my biggest cost on the trip, closely followed by the cost of just getting to Costa Rica. After that followed all the activities, and after that all the living expenses. And finally, transportation was absolutely the cheapest part of my trip, but it could have been a lot more expensive if I had rented a car. But there was actually one extra piece to the travel budget, aptly enough called extra. When flying to Miami on the way to Costa Rica, my flight was delayed, so I ended up missing my connecting flight to San Jose. This caused quite a bit of misery. Finnair refused to fix a hotel room for me, so I had to fix my own room at Miami International Airport and pay for it as well. I also had to arrange a new transportation between San Jose and Arenal, a private shuttle at quite exorbitant cost. Anyway, that's the extra part of my travel budget, in case you're wondering. Well, there you have it. That was a rundown of my 2-week solo travel budget for Costa Rica. I hope you found it interesting. Like and subscribe if you want to see more strangely informative tales. But most importantly, have a great day.